that we're going over today is by the GATI Foundation. GATI stands for Global Access to Talent from India, and it's positioning India as a global talent brand. What they're saying is, you need more labor, more laborers, and we've got the people. India exports as its product human capital. This report, I want to give you a little bit of a background on what this report says about India's economy. I'm going to read some stuff to you. Low labor force participation means India is not fully capitalizing its demographic dividend. They just stated that they have a low labor force participation. Let me go into further detail. In all rapidly growing peer countries, their competitors, growth has been both productivity and employment intensive. By contrast, in India, the employment rate has dropped systematically and significantly in the pre-pandemic period. Over 2000 to 2019, the working age population increased by 37.4%, but employment increased by only 15.7% during the same period. So the labor force participation rate fell from 58% to 49%. Despite a significant increase since 2022, India's overall labor force participation remains low by middle-income country standards. Over the next 3 decades, the growth of the working age population will decelerate, and the dependency ratio is projected to increase from 45% in 2032 to 49% in 2050. This implies that there is a limited window to maximize demographic gains by boosting labor force participation and job creation. What India wants to do, because they can't create a vibrant, growing economy for their massive population on their own, they want to use emigration or migration flows, labor pipelines, into successful, prosperous first world nations, developed nations, and I liken it to sort of a parasitic relationship where the first world nation builds their economy, has the legal infrastructure, has the infrastructure in roads and communications and transportation, and also, of course, healthcare, education for its populace. India does not have this. So the developed countries do have it. So they've expended time, brain power. They've invested in building this system up, their economy up, and their society. And India, and then naturally, the American dream is that the Americans who work hard are able to take advantage of that prosperity because they're the ones that built it. But India's model is to have Indians reach in or migrate to every developed country and start taking those jobs from the domestic and labor force, the domestic labor force. And this is how it wants to build its economy. And India believes it's on a deadline because their demographics are shifting. Their birth rates are declining, and their workforce participation is decreasing. It's not growing. Their economy is not growing. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. With that background, I wanted to lay that out for you. What do they next say? More jobs are required, but also better jobs. New jobs have been mostly created in informal and low productivity occupations. That's the Indian economy. Growth has been driven by modern market services, which require relatively few, mostly high-skilled labor inputs. Instead, job creation has occurred mostly in construction and traditional market services, where employment trends tends to be informal and have limited scope for productivity growth. Agriculture remains the primary employer. So this is the Indian economy. Amanda, we're going to start with the first slide that says, India's time to act is now. Let's describe it. You take it away and I'll jump in.
So what here is India is planning to do a massive migration plan where they're saying that there is a labor shortage of 45 to 50 million in the world, and that India has the opportunity to scale up their migration to high-income countries who apparently have the biggest gap in labor shortages. And they plan to position themselves as a global supplier of skilled and semi-skilled labor, targeting healthcare, manufacturing, domestic work, EVs, so your electrical vehicles, and caregiving.
All right. And I will make this one note here. I refer frequently to the United Nations Secretariat Population Division and their report from the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. It's called Replacement Migration. And it's supposedly asking the question, is it a solution to declining and aging populations? And this is the same program. India has taken this and very seriously and seen it as an opportunity for India to replace workers in foreign countries with their own people. And they're doing it. If you look at the bottom here, $300 billion, they're doing it. One purpose is to increase the remittances, dollars going from foreign nations back to India inwardly from 3% to 4 to 5%.
Yeah. So exactly, is it about a labor shortage? Is it about migration, or is it about remittances? That slide's so all over the place, and there's so much data on it. It really would be hard for anybody to sit there and concentrate. But at the end of the day, what they're saying is that they want to send more India workers abroad in the millions. That these workers would take blue collar and nursing jobs from countries like the U.S., and that India would profit off their wages through remittances and boosting its own economy. And that's essentially what that big mess of all that data really is.
Right. And I will point out that they want to be considered, their branding is a trusted circular migration partner. And what that means is they send workers in to take American jobs. We'll just talk about America. So Indians come in to take American jobs. They flow back for various reasons, which we really can't go into now, but they may end up working for American companies, but they've flowed into America. They've worked for a particular company. They go back to India. They bring their expertise. There's knowledge transfer. They call that GATI. And they also then have developed a relationship inside of America. They understand the way we do business and how we work, and they can set up businesses in India, which is what they actually do, and develop a relationship with the company that they used to work for. Is that part of what this circular migration is?
Yeah, so instead of brain drain, it's brain gain. That's what the circular migration really is.
And you know what else it is? We're doing their training for them. We're not getting those high-skilled white-collar workers that we're being told. This is very important, everybody. Amanda has proven that the workers that are coming here are not high-skilled labor that can compete head-to-head with American high-skilled labor. They're not high-skilled like Americans are. This is the entire population we're talking about. We're not, there can be some very high-skilled Indian laborers, but we're talking about the whole population. It is not high-skilled, and they're coming in, and they're actually using the resources of American companies to be trained, to elevate those skills, to get the work experience, and then to take that back to India with them. Instead of us doing it with our American students and with veterans and people who are out of work here, we're training up their population for them because they don't have a good education system.
Correct. Yeah. That's why the India government has been working so hard at the World Trade Organization to make developed nations who have higher standards of certification and education to accept more minimal standards and on-the-job training or experience training in lieu of actual credentials that would be acceptable on the global standards. Which kind of gets you to the whole point of some of these slides. And what we're going to really just address here is that this isn't really about a skill shortage or about migration as much as this is a very strategic blueprint. They've done a lot of research to develop, and this kind of gets into the next slide, a mechanism to identify how do they get their people in those jobs.
Let's go to that slide.
Yeah. So that way that we can actually bring and send people there, and what are going to be the bottlenecks to get them there. And so the next slide kind of talks about how high-income countries, so they're very focused on high income, face that 45 to 50 million labor gap. And that's what they've done is from their perspective, the labor demand in rich countries is rising dramatically, expected to go 10 times increase of labor gap by 2030. So they're saying that by 2023, which, hey, we're in 2025, we had a 5 million labor gap, which is so funny that we have 5 million of their POIs, people of Indian origin here. But by 2030, we were going to have a 45 to 50 million gap, and that there's a 90% opportunity for these 20 countries to use the Indian labor to fill those gaps. They have identified that 50% of those openings are in blue collar, so manual labor service, the semi-skilled area that they want to penetrate.
And blue collar can also be skilled in the sense that if you are a welder of a high degree of skill and you're building ships for the United States of America, that is a good, well-paying job. And Americans should be filling those jobs, of course. What they're talking about here is also, besides skilled blue-collar workers, it's medium and low-skilled blue-collar workers. And they're talking about routine, manual, and non-manual jobs, labor job. Routine, let me just read it. It says, advancements in Gen AI impact several jobs. For example, routine, manual, and non-manual. What does that mean?
Routine, so the automation is changing job structures, manual and routine jobs. So they're talking about robotics. So robotics coming in, AI that is going to make the things that people used to do or have to be hands-on, less hands-on. But with that, what you're going to need is workers who can work on those machines or manage those machines from a high level. So even though those are technically going to replace people, they're saying that it's going to cause more jobs needed.
That's what I saw and put in my notes on this particular slide, is that they do not include the impact of automation, robotics, and AI. It's ignored. They have this little line item here, but what I don't understand is this. Larry Fink of Blackwater says that the countries that are having demographic decreases because of the older demographics are retiring, leaving the labor force and transitioning out, that they're going to be better positioned because of automation, robotics, and AI, because they do not need, he says, they do not need to bring in immigrants, because the robotics and AI will take up the slack for any loss of a workforce. So why would the developing nations be faced with 45 to 50 million shortfall in especially skilled labor or medium skilled labor if robotics and AI is going to move in to these industries and reduce the number of laborers or workers that have to do that kind of work? Is that one reason that they want to go to blue-collar jobs? Because they see the impact of robotics, AI, and automation in general on white-collar jobs, which are very frequently computer-based, and they want to move into part of the economy that requires bodies, blue-collar.
That could certainly be part of it, but the main thing is that they just don't have a nation that has enough skilled workers. They have a huge population. And even the ones that do go through formal education, that education is so, quality is so low. Even by their own standards, they've said that over 60% of their engineers are unemployable or they don't have the right skill sets. I've seen 80% in some studies. So they're not able to market skills that are unmarketable, even if they went through education pipeline. So what better than something that is real, for in their mind takes no skills, or that they don't have to have an education for, or that has to be accepted by another nation, since the other nations don't want to accept just skills. That kind of gets them into those positions. But what I also think that the way this slide reads, and just knowing all my research, what they're wanting is to act fast, get into those positions, understand, and become in charge, because then they become hiring pipeline before anybody else does. Because there will be people who have to manage the automation and the robots. So if you end up with that skill or you end up in that position, then you can make sure that only India gets those jobs before everybody else starts getting cut out of there. But what they failed to realize is that if we're going to be cutting jobs because of automation and robotics, and if our workers are going to be out of the job, America's smart. Our people are going to learn how to do those jobs and could be trained to do those jobs. We don't need migrants to come in to do those jobs for us and be skilled and be the only ones that know how to work on those machines. We can do it all on. We really need your help.
No, I don't think that they were too worried about from a philanthropic standpoint to begin with. Let's go through slide 5.
So slide 5, and we're going to go quickly, we promise. So this one is just a whole bunch of numbers and a lot of little tiny fonts. I want you to kind of think about what they're trying to say here. But they're trying to say that the USA has 11 to 12 million jobs that have labor gap. So our 7 million plus unemployed, and our 1 in 4 Americans who are underemployed or not looking for a job because there's no jobs. With all the migration that is coming into our United States, that when we only create 2.2 million jobs or 2.5 million jobs, we have 5 million, 9 million more immigrants to come in to replace us as it is. I don't think we have a shortage of 11 to 12 million, but that is what India is trying to say that we have, that is existing. And that's with those known labor shortages, they've mapped out where to send its workers.
Or assumed labor shortages, right?
Correct.
Assumed, yeah.
And they also identify which countries they already have a foothold in, and what countries they plan to expand into, and where there are countries that do not accept currently very much foreign labor. So it's really just kind of just outlining their initial thoughts and blueprints. Where's the ROI going to be for them to land their Indian?
And remember that they consider us a highly penetrated market. Highly penetrated market. That's the US, UK, etc. And that should give us pause. What's the next slide here?
So the next slide breaks down the opportunities by blue collar or white collar, where they estimate that the 50% of the global labor gap, so 18 to 20 million jobs, are going to be in blue collar workers in key roles that are industry and transport, domestic workers, hospitality and care workers, such as nannies, and sales professionals. And India has a huge supply of these workers, migration pipelines already in place, and that's limited ability to offshore these roles that are physically present. So it's really interesting, some of the terms that they're using, such as the having the migration pipelines already in place. So for the white collar, medium skilled, the 20% of the labor gap, there's 6 million jobs that India migrants can be filling, that could fill. So the key roles are clerks, admin, and office support, nurses, and teachers.
So we need to import teachers to teach American students what? American history or English? And then our back office clerks, all of those really good jobs in air-conditioned buildings that are not dangerous. You work with your hands, with your mind. You work on computers. They're good jobs. They're good job for women, and the same thing for nursing. Not to say that only women take these jobs, but this is probably highly staffed with women, clerks, nursing, and teaching. And so they're sending Indians in to take jobs that women, stay-at-home moms that work part-time, whatever, would normally be taking, American women.
And so then they go on to the white-collar, highly skilled, where they see a 30% labor gap of 10 to 12 million jobs. And I will tell you all the mass layoffs that have hit us since 2020 in the tech and business side of things, that there is no skill gap. And we're going to continue to be hit with these layoffs. So I don't see where they see that there's 10 to 12 million jobs there. But in key roles like information and communications tech.
Well, now they're talking about this globally. Let's keep that in mind. That
it is globally, yes, with America needing the most out of all of the countries. And managers. So definitely want to make sure that they get those managers in there. And India already dominates the segment with a strong talent pipeline penetrating the US and UK and tech-heavy industries.
It's extraordinary. This is usually a business plan includes a product, and they have done some innovation. There's a new technology that's been developed by a company with a lot of talented people or a talented founder, and that company is producing something new or better. And then they put together a business plan and lay it all out, something like this. But what India is doing is not producing something better or something new. They're just have a business plan for their nation to send their people out, the best and the brightest, but now blue-collar workers as well, into foreign nations to take jobs there. And when we have an oversaturated labor market or labor pool, and our salaries and wages have been flat since the 80s and 90s, and we have so many people unemployed, this is just ridiculous. And if American politicians buy into this and policymakers, they're being gaslit. They're selling America down the road, or down the river, rather.
And I think it'll be interesting when we get to who participated in this GATI scheme. But one thing out of this slide that I think I just want to highlight the most, that is the most important thing out of this whole entire slide, is that they not only identified blue collar, white collar, and high skilled versus medium skilled as their opportunities and had keynotes. The one thing that hits my mind the second I see it is the fact that they labeled what has the most offshoring potential. So is this about a labor shortage? Is this about revenge? Or is this about taking our jobs back home?
Are you saying?
It's in the fine print. You gotta look. My eyes zone in on that word. Sure.
All right. So what you're saying here is that they're identifying which jobs can then later be offshored?
Correct.
Oh, I see. Yep. It's right under, I was looking at highly penetrated regions like the US. It so distracted me because I'm so annoyed with the fact that our government has allowed them to highly penetrate our labor pool to such an extent that they will actually just put it there. Their pipeline has highly penetrated the United States. Not happy about that. Medium-high offshoring potential of jobs considered. Tell me if I'm wrong. What they're saying is that these jobs that they send Indians into America to take away from Americans can then have a high or medium to high probability or opportunity of then offshoring it later.
That's why it's circular migration. Go in to get the job, come back to bring it back. Circular migration.
I'll tell you what we need right now. We need a moratorium. Amanda agrees. So many Americans agree. We want a moratorium on immigration, on worker visas. We are oversaturated. So nothing will happen. By the way, you know what will happen if we have a moratorium? Everyone will realize that we have been gaslit for these past 20 years, being told that we do not have the labor workforce, we don't have the skilled labor workforce. They will completely, it'll rip away the blinders off of our eyes, of the entire American society, because they will see that if we stopped and had just a stop on migration, whether it's through our visa system or any other, form of that system, and nothing happens to America, we don't fail. The factories keep factoring. the big tech bros keep teching, and we continue prospering. And actually, I think it'll increase our economy's vibrancy. We will become more wealthy if we're sowing that money back into American jobs, into American. You know where what he leaves to go to a job? He leaves an American house with an American wife or husband and American children that have to be educated and clothed, an American house that they have to pay the mortgage on, the American cars that they use to drive around, and all the other things that American families and homes and communities do. He leaves there to go to a job. What a foreign worker does is get on a plane, land, get an apartment, get a house with 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 other people from his country, and then they take that job and they take that money, and it's not going to pay for an American house, for an American family, for American kids who need to be educated and taken care of. It's going back to their country of origin, and it's building up their economy, and we've got to stop it. And if we put a moratorium on now, and I'm calling for a 2-year time frame where we are discussing this nationally, where we are having open forums, and that workers and small businesses and families, they have a say. They can talk about this. Sorry, I just got off on that. I don't know if anybody cares about what I just said, but really, this is absurd. We need a moratorium. We should not give 1 inch to any foreign nation sending blue-collar workers into our country. Blue-collar workers? Are you kidding me? We used to be on the farms. We used to be in hospitality. We used to be in meatpacking plants. But no, we can't do that anymore. We can't, we can't be involved in those industries. And then we were told, blue-collar jobs, they're all going to China, or the manufacturing jobs go to China. We can't do those jobs, and we'll go into service industry. We'll become a service economy. And what was everybody told? Learn to code. And then what do? They send millions upon millions of people in and offshore millions of jobs into coding and IT and computer technologies and computer science and engineering. And now those are all gone. And the one last thing that we might have any hope for is blue-collar workers. And President Trump is trying to bring back factory jobs. And we've got a blueprint here to send Indians in to America to now take industry and transport workers. We've already heard what's happened to the trucking industry. It's being overwhelmed with foreigners who are getting in accidents, who are not qualified. Hundreds of thousands of men have lost their jobs in transportation. Domestic workers, hospitality and care workers, nannies, sales professionals. This is ridiculous. India has an unlimited supply of population. We don't need it. We've got Americans to do these jobs. We need a moratorium.
Right. And, one thing that always comes to mind when I especially see a slide like this and hearing your passion, that's exactly how I feel about this entire offshore issue. In 2003, and I hate to go back, but, Kevin Flaggen had committed suicide in the Bank of America parking because he had to train his foreign replacement because Bank of America was offshoring his job. And I will never forget it because it's so key to what you just said, that this is part of what we've opened the door to globalization. But Indian media, and I'll just never forget the way that they just framed it. America welcomed globalization, and now you can't hack it now that there's offshoring of jobs. And that right there just tells me that even if we
use
have
that term,
which we don't, That's not the kind of country that I want to come and have their nationals come into my country. It's not the country that I want that is looking at my country like a dollar bill for remittances. It's not the kind of country that I want that wants to take our knowledge and our jobs and create an export out of it when they have no innovation or haven't had the ability to create those own jobs in their own country or manufacturing or whatever else. They've had to do it unfairly, and they had to do it off of the American back.
Parasitically. Yeah. This is infuriating. And the attitude, presumptuousness of the attitude, well, like you just said, when they said, well, America invited globalism and now they can't hack it, too bad. But you know what? MAGA rejects globalism. I think we need to dissect what globalism is, not here, but we should all be thinking about what is globalism. And this was the key, or one of the key factors or characteristics of globalism, that you just rip down national barriers, boundaries, or borders, and that there's a free flow of populations. People can go and live wherever they want to, that we lose all the sovereignty in our nation, and that companies are no longer American companies with American flags in their parking lot and celebrating Independence Day and Christmas and Easter in their office buildings. They're celebrating the holidays of foreign cultures now, today, and at least in big tech. And you've come from that, where they didn't celebrate Christmas, but they celebrated in your American company's office, they were celebrating Indian holidays, but not American holidays. We need to think about what globalization is and realize that immigration, naturalization, citizenship, offshoring, and foreign worker pipelines are all key to globalization or globalism. And if we're rejecting globalism, then we need to stand up and call it for what it is. This entire immigration industrial complex is just globalism. And so American politicians who are MAGA, who are America first, should be rejecting the immigration industrial complex and the Indian immigration industrial complex, which is highly defined and structured and analyzed and quantified and qualified. We need to shut that down now. India is a competitor. It's not a friend. It's a competitor. And we're not going to build up India like we built up China.
So the next one is discussing the employment annually overseas for Indian migrants. So what they've done is they have taken into consideration of what does it look like today? What is the landscape today? And so they feel that they have 2.5 million Indians that go abroad, not counting tourists. Currently, they have 1.8 million of those go for work, and this has been annually, so each year, and some for long-term purposes, not education. But 1.3 go abroad, excluding students and family members. India sends 700,000 to 1 million workers abroad each year on employment work visas. And most growth is happening in countries like Germany, Poland, and Italy with 15% annual growth. Those are some small countries, so I apologize for them. So plain English, what are we looking at here? So close to 1 million Indians move abroad each year to work for work mostly, and in the U.S. and Canada, UK, Gulf, and Australia. These are not students or tourists, but workers entering these countries' job markets. We all know that. And that India makes up 20 to 30% of the total work visas issued in those countries combined. Obviously, not in America. They're pretty dominant.
Right. These numbers here that they're showing for America, this is speculation on my part, but I believe that this is here just to, they don't want to show the true numbers.
No, I know the true numbers. That is too low. I mean, we had over 900,000 Indian immigrants coming into the United States based off of visas last year. And in fact, I think that they said that in 2024, and this was a published by one of the consulates, U.S. consulates for India. But they were very proud that they issued 1.4 million permanent residency cards to Indian nationals before they even came here because of the family reunification that Biden put together. 1.4 million.
When my family came over from, Ireland and Sweden, they didn't get family reunification. Their families chose to come together, and then they said goodbye, and the old world was left behind. And the families that didn't come, they hugged them and kissed them and said goodbye. But here, we are making migrants out of the brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, mothers and fathers of people who are coming over here ostensibly to fill a labor shortage, a skilled labor shortage, but then we need to bring their entire family or extended family with them. I disagree. These bullet points, not bullet points, these round circles that are yellow, gray, and blue, I don't even think this slide is a lie. Because if 900,000 or 1 million came into the U.S., I don't know what this number is supposed to represent. I think it's just fake. So let's just move on from this slide.
Yeah, and the next one we'll just kind of brush through quickly because it's just a bunch of numbers and the good slides are coming. Again, it's just from India's perspective. They currently have 6 to 8.8 million workers abroad every year. That's what they send.
Forget the numbers here for right now. Let's just say one thing. We can see the numbers. It's boring. India could nearly double its annual net talent flows to 1.5 million by 2030. This is all a business plan. This is their economy. They want to nearly double. It's like excitement here. We can nearly double our annual net talent flows. Net talent, we're not going to use that word. India can call blue-collar workers, no offense to blue-collar workers, and nurses and ditch diggers and all this. Everybody is talent to them now because what they're trying to present India as a country that has an incredibly deep, broad, and rich talent source or talent base or pool. But that is not true. That is absolutely not true. To use the word talent is a gaslighting branding technique or PR. And I think it's probably intended for maybe not businesses, I don't know, but for politicians. This is not talent coming here, it's workers.
It's not talent, it's a cost advantage.
It's about money. Okay, continue. Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, okay. So next
By
slide.
the way, I'm sorry, the words here just are so funny. They call their people stock, migrant stock projections. What is, you've got your stock room in your grocery store and all your stock is placed on shelves there. And then you take it out and put it on the shelves on the floor. So current stock of migrant Indian workers, 8 million. Stock. I love it.
And the next one is new economies, which are opening up, require lesser structural push, whereas saturated mature markets require structural G2G, so government to government visa interventions to scale further.
This is the slide I've been waiting for. Go ahead. Take it away.
Yeah, an intervention. If we have a skill shortage, we have a labor shortage, we have a problem as a country that we better have a bunch of migrants come here and do these jobs. But why would that require you to have structural intervention to convince another country to take your people? If we were that desperate because of these labor shortages, wouldn't we and make it to where we would modify our policies to allow exemptions so that way we can get the help that we so desperately don't actually need?
An intervention. I mean, their terminology is just mind-blowing. You're picturing this family, the guy comes home from work or playing basketball or whatever. He walks in the room. He's got his coffee and he walks in the room and grandma and grandpa, neighbors and coworkers are there and they're going to have an intervention. They've got to step in and save him from himself because I don't know what. He's on opioids or something. So this let's look at this headline again. new economies which are opening up require less structural push. Structural meaning government, meaning the gatekeepers, the lawmakers, the laws and the regulations of regarding migration, travel, visas, foreign workers. They don't require they require less structural push. But when they've already saturated mature markets like us, they've done what they think. They've done all they can do to saturate us, taking loopholes, doing workarounds, sending in students really as permanent labor, but ostensibly just for an education. They've taken advantage of every weakness in our system. And that's all they can do so far. But now we need to have structural interventions to scale further. I mean, like they're talking about us and we're in the room and we're saying, wait a minute, you do know I'm here. You're planning on structural government to government visa interventions. So they need to change our visa programs to get to scale.
Correct. Yes. And what's interesting, and I've written articles about this GATI scheme before because it just fired me up so much. And the Indian government is involved. Like the Ministry of External Affairs, Jay Shankar, he was a part of this. He blessed it. He had a whole speech about this whole program. So I was already fired up about this, but I felt like we need to actually talk through this so people can hear it in our voices and actually see the parts that are highlighted that they really need to pay attention to, because this is a strategy to infiltrate. If there's no gap here, if you have to do all these processes in order to gain access. And so on this slide, what they also talk about what is organic, so what's going out today versus what is achievable, how many can they send out in the near future or annually, and then what is aspirational, like where can they get to, what's the that they can really send into these 20 different countries that are all high economies that have lots of opportunity to send remittances and jobs back home. And so countries with professions and existing temporary visa regimes or established migration pathways with India are the achievable. And the aspirational structural unlocks needed, such as new visa categories and increased visa caps, America falls under. So we are not under the achievable because guess what? We're that saturated market that they have already abused. So they need to open up a new visa category and
new
increase
avenues, new visa categories, increased visa caps.
They want the cap gone.
We're not taking the caps away. As a matter of fact, we should screw them down and get them lower and lower and lower. We need a moratorium, but if it takes a couple of steps, I advise that we just do the moratorium, just, take the Band-Aid off all at once, real fast. Say, I'll count to 3, and then you do this. 1, you take it off. We need a moratorium, but there is one thing we are not going to do, and that's lift the visa caps. As a matter of fact, visas for H-1B, I'm not sure, is it H-1B alone that has a cap of 7% of the total pool of H-1Bs that come into the United States? Is that for perm or is that for H-1B?
That's for green cards. So the 7% cap is on green cards. The cap that they're talking about is that right now, even with some cap exemptions, which is going away, is the fact that you can only get 185,000 whatever Indians through that pipeline on H-1B. You notice that even though it is becoming more scammed, the O visa, but they have not been able to penetrate that because that is actually truly high skilled. You have to prove that you actually are a genius in your field and that you're critical. So they've exploited every opportunity possible on the ones that are easily exploitable, and we've already proven that time and time again. And so the H-2 visa is the other category because there's no, education, skills requirements, and so forth. You just have to be a labor.
So you keep putting pressure on the system and you just find out where the cracks are. And then that's where they go through. This, the visa cap. So I was discussing for perm, the 7%. I will just say this, that we need to keep India and all other countries to 7%. That if we have a pool, say we have a number of perm or green cards that we're going to award in a particular year, no country is supposed to exceed 7%. But if some countries do not take advantage of that 7% of the total of all countries, then India gets all the rest. And we need to stop that, because the point of the caps is to prevent us from, at least this is my assessment of it, prevent us from having an influx from one country that will significantly alter our cultural makeup, our demographic makeup, that will, no country wants to become another country if they like their country. It's
called the melting pot for a reason.
Yeah, we want people to be Americans. And if you have, and Americans are Europeans and African Americans who were enslaved. That's what the base of American population is. And we do not want it to become any other culture. We want everybody to come in and just become Americans. And it's a melting pot, like you said.
Yeah, do we remain the United States anymore if we are, being turned into other cultures? You lose what it makes to call us a nation. And I'm not okay with that. So the next slide, all I have to do is read the first title, and I think people will get that this is a horrible slide. Structural challenges preventing India's full overseas employment potential.
Oh, we're so worried about their potential. Well, they are. We are not. So what are the challenges?
So India's biggest obstacles are foreign visa rules, because, following our rules would mean that we don't really need any other workers, because you would have to actually test the domestic labor market. That local opposition to mass immigration, so the MAGA group who are challenging the system and will not allow any more immigration to be exploited, were a problem, and a lack of international recognition of Indian qualifications, because they're not skilled. So I didn't even have to bring up any other articles. Here it is. I've told you time and time again, what they try to do is convince other countries to accept the fact that they don't have global standards of skills. And there it is again.
Skill recognition. Indian certifications often aren't recognized internationally. We know why that is.
Yoga for class to get your master's is just not acceptable at global scale. So yeah, and again, this whole thing that India is this skill hub of labor talent. It is not true. And
it's a mirage.
Yeah, they are pretty much every time that they speak in one forum versus another forum, they're always contradicting themselves, and it's just so funny that people have ate up that narrative. When we have our college graduates who can't get jobs, and we have skilled professionals, educated, engineers who can't find employment, there's no skill shortage here. And we certainly...
when I look at this demand side here, so the challenge is, and they put a little red star circle thing there, political and public concerns over migrants' long-term settlement, altering local demographics. They're acknowledging, and by the way, India feels this way. India is highly Hindu-centric. As a matter of fact, Modi's philosophy, the philosophy that he ascribes to, is that you have to be Hindu to be Indian. And that's why the Muslim-Hindu clashes in India increase year by year. It's a massive problem. And this philosophy or this movement to keep India Hindu, because Hindu, by the way, just means Indian, okay? They, for themselves, for their own cultural preservation, and I'm not going to characterize or judge this whole movement within their society and their nation. It's 100 years old. I'm just going to say that it is an incredibly important, vital conversation that they're having in India. They feel very strongly about it. They want India to remain Hindu. and Indian. Now here, they recognize that Americans want our local demographics in all of our little villages and towns and townships and counties and cities and major cities to not be altered by increases or in migration. We want America to stay American. And then their second item, but just think of the hypocrisy. I understand that they're just doing what they're doing, what's best for India. This migration scheme, this entire business plan is intended to help India, not America.
Right. What they're doing is they're just putting out what are the blockers right now. They're identifying, again, because this is strategic. This is a plan. So they're just identifying the core things that they feel are, structural challenges that they have to overcome in order to gain our...
Well, how do you overcome this idea that Americans, we're only talking about America, have concerns over migrants' long-term settlement? That means they become Americans or stay permanent workers and then have babies that become American citizens, altering local demographics. Where are they going to change that? The demand side. We're supposed to be the demand side. I'm not demanding it, but
we'll get into. They have the structural unlocks later.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
I missed that part. Let's keep going.
And yeah, we'll keep going. So the key details out of that is that I already mentioned the Indian certifications. The other issues that they identified was financing barriers, so high migration costs with limited loans or financial support for workers. So they're talking about their, because India is so large, so you have a lot of people who are living off of that $2,000 a year GDP or unemployed or living in huts. So they want to make sure that we get all of Indian nationals into America. So they're wanting to make sure that they can finance those Indian nationals as well to come into our country. So plain English, what this is saying is that India's biggest obstacles are foreign visa rules, local opposition to mass immigration, and lack of international recognition, with many countries cautious about importing too many workers due to political and social...
And they're very aware of that now.
No,
they're very aware of the backlash. This report came out in 2024, right?
So the initiative launched on March 5th, 2025. That's when I noticed this whole GATI thing. They've been working on this since 2023. Really, some of the initiatives that are tied to this and the ministries that are tied to this have been around for the last, I would say, 15, 20 years. But because of Jaishankar's welcoming speech, I learned about the GATI scheme and that its official launch was the March 5th, 2005.
Okay. I want to look at this nursing issue here. This concerns me.
Yeah, and it would. And some of the reports I've seen on the their skill reports would worry me too on the nursing piece. But nursing, high global demand, but expensive and slow Indian nurses to get license abroad. So what they're pretty much with this slide they're saying is that there's a huge global shortage of nurses and it's growing fast. And I will tell you that my best friend teaches at a nurses college. She's been in the field her whole life, and she says that she watched this shift happen already for the last several years. All of the university students seem to be from India. So this has been a transition plan for some time. And I won't go into what colleges' names or anything because that kind of explains where I'm at, and I prefer people not to know exactly. But I've seen the same thing at local colleges as well. And I'm in the Midwest, like where you would not think that they're not top schools. They're not, where you would think you would attract international talent. Because it's not. It's a big mass flow. So India wants to fill these gaps with a nursing workforce. But for Indian nurses, it's hard and expensive to qualify for work abroad. They need a passed foreign language and skills test. So that's hard, apparently. And the process can take up to 2 years and cost thousands of dollars. So India is trying to push to reduce those barriers so it can export even more nurses. I can't imagine a nurse that I have to have work on me or my family or loved ones that got here because we had to lower our standards for nursing.
This is happening in different industries, but focusing here on nursing, that's a big problem because I've heard so many Americans talking about how medical care is declining. Doctors are leaving because they can't compete with foreign doctors and nurses, practices that are, I guess, founded by foreign doctors and have foreign nurses. I've seen my mother in care when the nurses were obviously temporary foreign workers and they could barely speak English, and the care was abominable. But what I also want to take just a very quick note here to say that India has a tremendous deficit, a shortage in qualified doctors. It's something like 1 million. And so one has to question this. When they're sending men and women to be doctors and nurses in foreign nations, firstly, when they are at such a deficit in healthcare, especially with staffing of qualified doctors and nurses in India, why are they doing that? Because the people don't matter as much as the money that they get back from America and other countries when they send foreign nurses, or Indian nurses rather, and doctors to America. Because there's 1 million doctor shortage in India. 1 million. And what they have is a huge industry of fake doctors. They call them quacks. They actually call them quacks. And there are millions of fake doctors in India that have never been certified, never gone to college. They're not overseen. There's no medical basis for their so-called practice. And they are actually practicing medicine on Indians. So this is where doctors, so this is the India economy, or the medical industry in India. It's fraught with fakery and fraud, and it's also in such a state of despair because of the shortages, and yet they're still sending people, or they want to send millions of Indians to foreign nations. I think we should keep our standards high and not listen to any of this. What department or would be involved in lowering standards? Is that just the university systems?
Well, technically it would, because that's how they'd get funneled through here. If they get put into a program for a doctor, they have to go through their work program, working at hospitals. If they're accepting whatever college certification that India has, because of whatever deal that they have, then yeah, we would be importing them through that program, and then they would be certified in the U.S. to practice medicine.
This is another example where the American people aren't deciding. It's an industry or agency that is not voted on by the American public. We didn't decide this policy. And if we allowed the university systems to decide who comes in to America because they determine how many or what the standards are for medical practice and licensure certification, we're actually allowing university administrators to make that decision for us. That doesn't make any sense because the American people should be making that decision.
I agree completely. Well, and so then we get, and because we're going to try to stay on pace.
Stay on pace.
India's plan to break barriers and expand global labor migration. So earlier we talked about what are the blocks. So these are the block unlocks, essentially. So what they're trying to say is that for the demand issues that we talked about earlier and the supply issues that they have, this is what they're going to do in order to get over those barriers. So between government-to-government deals. India wants formal migration partnerships with countries to lock in labor demand, loosen visa barriers to push to remove bureaucratic hurdles and ease rotational migration rules. They're going to brand Talent India, so it's going to be a brand, and position India as the go-to source for skilled migrant labor globally. They're going to align skills with global standards, train Indian workers to match specific job and accreditation requirements abroad. We've already talked about that in the past. They already do that today with AI, LinkedIn, and Monster. They're going to create financing solutions, set up loans and rotation funds. So rotation funds, that's so interesting. So workers can afford migration costs. And so this ambitious goal is to lobby for more visa slots, push other countries to raise visa caps and legal pathways for Indian workers. So plain English, India has a detailed strategy to embed its workers into foreign labor. We're going to make migration a global policy issue through GATI, so global government-to-government deals, loosen visa limits, export labor at scale, and ensure foreign countries adapt to take more Indians.
This is madness. I'm just kind of overwhelmed. It is so arrogant. The arrogance of this country that cannot produce an economy that can be self-sustaining. And then they speak of us as if we are pawns on a chessboard. We will loosen our visa requirements. We will eliminate caps. They will create the labor demand. Really? How do you create the labor demand? How does a foreign country create the labor demand? Is that just through PR? It's just the narrative? So now we'll have a demand because India tells us so? Go ahead. Go to the next one. I'm just so ticked off.
So the USA got their own special slide 19. USA key structural barriers to work visas, such as eligibility of Indians for blue-collar visas and cap in H-1B category. So our USA migration outlook, we have 52 million migrant stock as of 2022. We have an annual flow of 800K migrant flow as of 2022. So that 95K earlier, I mean, they're already contradicting themselves here. The top source country for their new labor migrants, India-USA labor migration corridor. So 95K India flow of workers in 2020.
The USA migration outlook, it says 52 million migrant stock in 2022. And the flow of migrants, I don't know exactly what they are referring to. Is that the flow just the annual inflow? So right now we have 52 million in migrant stock products in our country as of 2022, and then 800,000 more are added annually. And is this including all migrants? So Mexico and India are the number 1 and 2. Is that what that just said, that this is the current snapshot in 2022?
The numbers are on par. So 800K migrant flow in 2022. That is what we've seen in 2022. And that includes the B1, B2 visa, where it's traveling for business reasons and they could stay here up to a year. So that is pretty on point. Same way, I don't know where they say 95. Oh, the 95K inflow workers in 2021, that is pretty accurate as well, because they were still hit with the slowdown from COVID. So we weren't processing as many visas. There was a huge drop for all countries on visas in 2021.
Okay. So are they telling us, our American government can't tell us these numbers at the time, that we have 52 million migrants in America right now?
That's according to those numbers. That's and it sounds about right. So what they would be considering, because, well, that says migrant stock, but I know that they consider even 1 to 2 generation American Indians still Indian of origin, and they count those as being eligible for their COI, so Citizen of India card. It's their dual citizen card that they don't have dual citizens before. So maybe that's correct, 52 million. I think maybe also, and just throwing that out there, they could mean our total legal immigrant flow, because that is kind of on par as well as what we have working in U.S. on immigrant visas. And by that, I mean like the permanent residencies, green cards. If you were foreign born, that seems about right on those numbers based off Pew Research.
Let's look at this box to the right. There are two rows that they're not eligible for. We'll talk about that. That's what they want to push. But they say here that the H-1B visa, which is white collar most of the time, is 65,000, and they have 75% of that. We know it is far larger than that. I just want everybody to know, if you haven't seen all of Amanda's articles, and if you haven't seen our other shows, the 65,000 K is not the true number. It's 85, then it's double that. It's more like 120, 240,000 that are coming in on H-1B because they uncapped.
Exempt, yeah.
Yeah, the capped exempt. Tell us about the not eligible. That is a really important move they're making here.
So what they're trying to say here is that for the H-2 visa and the blue collar, the seasonal agriculture jobs currently is not eligible. And it's funny that they're putting that out there. But that the new visa issuance on those is 310K.
But aren't they through the, I don't know if it's the World Trade Organization or some other system, aren't they? They're trying to break the barrier to allow for seasonal agricultural jobs, which, by the way, a lot of people do not go home who take seasonal agricultural jobs and non-agricultural jobs. But they're saying they're not eligible. Are they trying to become eligible for this?
Correct, yes. And that's key to getting into those blue-collar visas.
Okay. But that would be, that's for H-2 visas. So the O visas and the L-1 visas, both those are being scammed as well. Is there any new information here other than
No,
what
it's
we've
just
talked
interesting that, they highlight in red that there's no formal labor migration deal between the U.S. and India. And they really want that because they really want the totalization of, getting exempt for paying taxes. They want, the I'm the favorite child deal somewhere down the line. And that's what they've been trying for many years. So that one is pretty interesting, our slide. Do you want to go to the next one?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. India's strategy to use government partnerships to unlock foreign job markets. So the G2G, government to government negotiations and partnerships via the MEA, so the Ministry of External Affairs, can act as a key demand generator for top destinations. I don't like Jay Shankar. He's in charge of that whole domain. I can see him manipulating his way. In fact, his book talks about manipulating other countries, even using China as a way to ploy their way in. Book was very interesting. I'll put that there. It's very clear that the strategy and conning and manipulating and taking advantage and exploiting is key to how Jay Shankar works. Compliments to him. He's been successful so far, but if I do my job correctly, then I will stop any other of these missions, including this GATI scheme. So with this slide, and there's a lot of text there, so anybody who's reading it is worth the read. What they're trying to say is their short-term goals, which they believe is achievable, is to negotiate country deals. India wants to cut visa red tape by signing bilateral labor agreements, which is so crazy that we're butting heads right now and we have not signed a bilateral trade deal. They're hoping by fall. But I have seen a note from Indian media saying that because of political issues that are really highly sensitive right now, those are off the table, but maybe they'll come later in other phases. That's India. I don't believe Trump is going to sell us out, but that is their language. That is exactly how they talk. They've been trying to get bilateral labor agreements from every administration. And every time they get a little bit of something, hoping that we start ending that. And this is what they're trying to do. They want to negotiate their way in, despite the fact that Americans did not vote for India to make India great. We did not vote to give jobs to Indian immigrants. We voted for the American people. So there are whole slides. I hope that this goes public. I hope that Trump sees this and says that, no, we're not dumb. We're not going to let you convince us and manipulate us into our job markets and make India great. This has to.
Demand generator. I'm still just wondering how they explain creating demand, because we either have jobs or we don't. Right? We have jobs that are not being filled, or we don't have jobs that are unfilled. And it seems to me that what they're saying is create the demand generator is the perception.
It is. And they rely on their diaspora. They rely on their what they call industry, which would be Microsoft, Amazon. You got Cognizant and Emphasis. They rely on them within the United States to push that narrative, to lobby to our policymakers to push the narratives and ensure that they get access. And that is the problem with our Department of Labor and processing these visas, because they are not based off of, does the American worker say that there is job availability? They're approving these visas because the employers say there are no Americans to do these jobs.
And because, and they're in collusion with India to create and continue and perpetuate the narrative so that India can achieve its ends, its goals. Never forget that India is working for India and big tech is working for big tech and their bottom line. They're not working for America. There is no patriot that I know of. I've said this more than once. If you know a CEO of a multinational corporation that used to be an American company, or anybody in the Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000, a CEO that's a patriot that actually cares more about America than, and its welfare and the people of America, and is a true patriot, let me know. I would love to meet that man or woman. Is there a patriot in the Fortune 1000? No.
And President Trump, on his AI speech just recently, last week, had called them out on it themselves. He called out Microsoft. He called out Apple. He called out Meta. He called them out and said that we know what you're doing. You are hiring, you're building it here, and then you're hiring in India. He said it specifically. He called it out. So this is, in fact, what they've been doing, our big tech.
Right. And our reporting is getting through. All this research that you have done, and your conversations off camera with key personages, it's getting through. It really is, because we can see this transition with President Trump, and we're so grateful for it. We are so grateful, because the whole thing is about America.
I'm going to make him my ringtone, his speech. So I was proud moment there. It's my ringtone.
Okay. So what else do we have to go through here? I don't know. Is slide 22 important? I haven't read this one yet. We should probably skip over anything that is
I think what's really important, so that way we could condense it. We're going to share these slides. It's going to, so you guys can go through it and read through it. And we'll put, a little sheet together of what's important, so that way you don't have to read through the some of the jargon that they use, or the code words that I am very familiar with that they like to use. One that I just want to make sure that we jump to real quick, and it's towards the bottom, and it's we are leveraging perspectives from several diverse stakeholders groups and have conducted extensive research to inform our analysis. This is on slide 26, and it's really, really important. Some of these little icons that they have that are very small, that of course see very, very clearly are U.S. companies or U.S. agencies that have participated in building this GATI scheme. And I think it's so critical that we really highlight this slide, because this is where it from strategy to manipulation to unfair advantage, whatever you want to call it in a war. This is certainly something that I would declare as a betrayal from those who are participating in this GATI scheme that are supposed to be representing the United States, and instead they're helping build out this scheme to replace Americans. So I had listed, and again, we'll share a fact sheet for you guys. So essentially the players, the ecosystem that they've created, their stakeholders informing their labor export strategy are corporate benefactors, their lobby networks, their immigration law firms, and
let's
policy.
Name some names here. The think tanks. Let's just. Is there anybody on top that in this number one, private players and staffing agencies? Who do you want to highlight here? And we won't talk about them. Let's just get the names out there.
So these are just recruitment, logistic, and talent placements. They're not really important. Nobody's going to really know these names.
Okay. Government departments and senior bureaucracies. Are these all? This is Philippines. This is India.
Yeah, I will mention because what's important for America to know, because obviously their ministries are a participant, but there's their Department of Commerce for India. They work really closely with the United States on policy issues. So we have the foreign agents that are actually in the United States. So the FICI and CII, they're corporate lobby groups. Again, nobody else is going to really recognize these names, but they've clearly got everybody on board. And those two groups, it's interesting that they put them under government and ministries because they claim they're not non-government. We get down to the think tanks and professional bodies. What I want to highlight on this one is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And I have seen millions of dollars being donated through their lobby agents from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So it doesn't shock me that they participated in this scheme.
And the Brookings Institute.
And the Brookings Institute, who have made a lot of publishing and policy briefs that go to Washington and influence these decisions. It's interesting that they're on here. But for anybody who doesn't know, Bill Gates is the original founder of Microsoft. So it's interesting that he likes to play.
Well, it's not that interesting. It's obvious because he is involved in COVID and trying to block the sun. There is nothing that this man will not, vaccines across the world, family planning, which is really abortion and contraception. He's got his fingers and hands into everything. And so this is just par for the course. We've known always that Bill Gates goes back to the 90s in trying to influence our migration and foreign worker policies. He is one of the bad guys in this whole thing.
That's why we have STEM-OPT.
Yeah, he invented STEM-OPT because he was angry because he couldn't get Congress to increase the caps on H-1B from 85,000 to wherever. And so we got it just through the back, going around the system and creating something that is not even created by Congress. Fragomen.
Yeah,
remember that name.
Yeah, it's the largest immigration law firm in the United States. They represent the big tech more often than not. There's another one that's Appleman, but they've primarily have been the ones that have had the bulk of those visas that get submitted that replace us. They have a whole ecosystem and AI system that files those for them, in fact. And what's interesting is that they made $900 million in profits last year, and so of course they have some skin in the game as far as making sure that India has lots of migration, because there's 1.6 million of them. That's a lot of revenue, or billion of them. So that's a lot of revenue for Fragment. Then we get into the global research and data sources, and we have Pew Research Center playing a role. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We have the World Bank.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
UN migration.
I told you they would come into play. And even though you can't see it, and it's very, very small icon, the Department of Labor.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Where is the Department of Labor?
It's under the 5 global publications, analysts, reports, and databases. They are on the far right, the very last one. If you zoom in as far as you can zoom in, that is the Department of Labor, hidden.
Okay.
How they played a role, I would love to know. Can you own that?
Are you sure that's the American Department of Labor? I can't see it. This document. You know what? I'll go to another document here.
I zoomed in on that because I seen that eagle. I zoomed in on it.
Okay, so you did it. You did see it because I can't see it, and I could just see.
I have a UI app that I use that I work on mocks all the time. I zoomed in, and it's certainly the Department of Labor.
Oh, it is. Now I can see it. United States Department of Labor, Oxford Economics, Migration Data Portal, Eurostat, World Bank Group, UNDP, Pew Research. That's under thought leadership. All right, let's draw this together. I know that it's really hard. I think that some of this to people is going to be kind of a droning, and I know we're not trying to do that. I'm wondering if we should end on what Indian talent faces in terms of challenges when seeking to move abroad for work. Was there anything in that particular slide 27 that caught your eye?
So, yeah, there's a couple different things. So generating the demand for India. So the problem is that countries aren't fully aware of what Indian workers can do.
Are we seeing a lot of backlash, though, that more and more I'm seeing reports of companies or in our conversations elsewhere that they're realizing that when they offshore to India, it's not happening. It's not all it was purported to be.
Yeah, Clorox just opened up a lawsuit against India, cognizant because of their offshore operations. A call center tech gave...
You know what? We're going to do a whole show on Clorox. We're going to do a whole show.
Obviously, in my mind, I can list 500, different scenarios that have already, come up and that are recent and have had it fail miserably. And that's what you get with. It's not about quantity; it's about quality. And America brings quality.
And so that what they're saying here is that one of the problems is that they have to generate demand by convincing people, nations, that and major companies that they have the skill sets.
But yet, at the same time, in that roadmap, they say that they have to skill individuals to meet job requirements. They have to skill them. It's not that they're already skilled; they have to skill them.
So essentially, they've sold. I'm sorry, we interrupted. Essentially, they sold themselves as having this vast, skilled labor market, and what they're doing is fake it till you make it. That's really kind of what this is. Fake it till you make it. So we're this big skilled, we're the global skill hub of the world, and if you need skilled workers, you need to come to India. We'll bring them to you. We'll send them to you. But India is that hub. But then in the background, they're saying, okay, we got to get some people skilled here. We got to get those skilled people. We promised, and we don't have that many skilled people. So we send them to these certification programs. We won't go into it, but our conversation on Wednesday was that they're literally, Microsoft and other companies are having Indians watch a 1 hour or half an hour video, and that certifies them as a special certification in a technology by watching a video.
Oh, that they did an internship with Microsoft.
That the internship was watching one video.
Well, yeah, it's a video, but that's essential. There's no monitoring. There's no tests. You watch that video and you'll get a certification.
And now you've been certified. Okay. Well, how do we round this out? It's gone longer than we hoped. Sorry, guys. We're trying to.
We're doing better. We'll get better as we go too. I mean, really, what our whole point of this was, as much as we were laughing and just pointing out the ridiculousness, this is how another country thinks. This is everything that I have done my research on and have dived so much in my investigations. It all has the same messaging. We need to send more people overseas. We need to infiltrate. We need to control the narrative. We need to, be the skills, mecca of the world. But yet we don't have those skills. So we need the employers to tell us what they want so we can give it to them, because we're going to be able to do those jobs cheaper with more people. And it just, at the end of the day, it's not good for Americans. That's all it comes down to. It's not about America. It's about India first. And this is India. This is the India government. So yes, they're going to put India first. I don't blame them for that. But they're being successful through manipulation. They're taking advantage of the open floodgates that they could take advantage of. They're taking advantage of corporate greed because they know they can. And that's where who's looking out for the American workers.
And I don't think that President Trump, I think he's becoming aware because good people are putting articles like yours, like the Microsoft article, and others, and data and reports in front of his face. And his people are bringing this more to his attention, because I think he was so busy in the first 6 months. He's still so busy, but he's gotten so much done. And now is the time. India says now is the time. We've got to take this tiger by the tail. We've got to take advantage. Otherwise, we're going to lose our opportunity. Our only opportunity is with President Trump. If we do not secure victory in the immigration and foreign worker visa programs before he leaves office, we have raised a white flag of surrender. If we can't do it under the best president in my lifetime, and maybe many lifetimes, if we can't do it under the president who has been more vocal, more fearless and outspoken than any other president in history about the crisis and the danger of mass migration into a country. That, as Elon Musk even said, mass migration destroys any country. And what we're seeing is the well-designed, very organized, thought-out program of a nation that is attempting to take the victory and the prosperity and the first world American dream in America and claim it as its own, appropriate our success to their economy. And it's sort of a stealth invasion. It's a stealth attack because it seems like it's just being done with negotiation and going through the proper channels and using all of the systems as they are laid out and respecting sovereignty. It looks like it's respectful of sovereignty and everything when they're sitting down talking to their interlocutors when they're making these negotiations, but they're not. This is a stealth invasion and a capture of our economy.
And the sad part is that we go back to that, who all participated to come up with this GATI scheme. And it goes way beyond what's just listed. Those are just the main contributors to contribute to that slide. The India lobby in itself, and we consider, all these employers that are offshoring, all these, industries, Silicon Valley, you got their NASCOM, their CII, they have all these groups working together.
Relentlessly.
Of India diaspora, they're in the United States, pushing for India. Who is that barrier for America? Where's our slides that have a counter to all their blocks, unlocks, and their schemes to protect America? Because we don't get a vote in that World Trade Organization room when they're deciding how they're going to do trade. We voted for our elected officials to be in there to protect us. And so far, that has not worked out in the past. And I do truly believe Trump is in there fighting.
He is.
And that's why there's delays, because India refuses to budge on wanting more visa access. I guarantee it. That has to be shut down. It does. And we need more people that are coming forward and protecting the American worker, but not just our jobs. This also has to do with our technology, our data, our advancement in technology. All of that
national
is
security.
National security is being shipped overseas. You have systems falling out of the sky that are being worked on by H-1B workers. We need to take a good step back, just like they wanted us to remove our, high criteria for nurses. Do we want doctors who don't have real degrees working on this? We do not. Do we want people who are not qualified to do engineering work? Because the amount of cybercrime and data breaches and everything else that is going on in the world, we need the best, and the best is Americans.
And I'll just close by saying this. This is about a government-to-government, nation-to-nation issue. When we're discussing China and how we do not want China to infiltrate our country, to take jobs, steal technology, steal trade secrets, etc., we don't want to continue what the previous generation did, and that is build up China into an even greater superpower. We're talking about India. We're just talking about India. We're not talking about your next door neighbor that you have coffee with twice a week.